Say you're the head of the Sinaloa cartel. Now, the cartels count their money by weighing it in 18-wheelers. But one sunny Mexican day, your in-house money scrubber comes to you and says you're 30 million light. Who can you trust to do the forensic accounting, track your stolen cash? Deloitte & Touche, H&R Block? You, somehow, contact an individual capable of coming in cold, uncooking years of books, and getting out alive.
Okay, retro go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies and specifically talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 325. And our movie this week from 2016, it's The Accountant. And here to talk with me about it from the Horse Girls podcast, it's Tim. Tim, how are you?
I am great, and I am so excited to hear your take on this movie. I've been waiting so long.
I cannot wait to talk about this. But first, before we do that, because I had not seen it before and you brought it to me, what's your history with The Accountant?
I think I stumbled onto this one when it was on TV one day. I had remember seeing the trailer. Like, I never went to see it or anything.
Mhm.
And I watched a section of the movie and I'm like, oh, I was actually kind of into that. And then I went back and watched the full version of the movie. And I was like, okay, I really enjoyed that movie a lot. Like, a lot. And then I was sad because there was no more and there was no talk of any more. And it was the discussion of the recent sequel that brought it up again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just always really like this movie. It has a lot, it hits a lot of the right chords for me. It has that 80s action movie vibe, but it's cleaned up in a lot of ways. So
yeah. So that's cool that you found it like just playing on TV, because I feel like that is a lost thing now. We do have a few streaming channels, Pluto TV, and there's a few of these services. Roku has some now where they have like just channels that play things. But I kind of miss that era of, it's Saturday afternoon, you're flipping through channels and, the WGN Superstation is playing their Saturday afternoon movie, or Sci-Fi has got a movie. I miss that because there is a discoverability to it. It's kind of like music in that way. We can maybe dig into that a little more at some point. So I have memory of like trailers for this movie, but I never saw it. And to be completely honest, I forgot that it existed for the most part until I'm in the theater a couple months back and I see a trailer for The Accountant 2. And I was like, wait, that's right. There was a Ben Affleck movie called The Accountant that they got a sequel. And I couldn't think of anything to do with it whatsoever. So 9 years later, we got this sequel. And I was like, oh, I should watch that first one at some point. And then somehow we got on this topic of something and you mentioned The Accountant. I was like, let's do it. So this was my first time watching it. I went in pretty much blind except for having seen that Accountant 2 trailer. So one thing in this movie was spoiled. I'm going to put quotes around for me, but we can kind of get to sort of what that meant or not. And I'm going to say up front, just for anybody that's listening to this that hasn't seen the movie and does care about spoilers, we're going to be spoiling it. And this is a movie full of plot twists. So if that does bother you, go watch it. It's streaming on Amazon Prime right now, or you can rent it on any of the services and then come back and listen to us. Having said that, spoiler restraint is off. We're going to talk about this because one of the things the movie does great is those twists.
Yes.
So little background on the movie as far as like cast and crew and whatnot, because I do love to talk about that. After I finished watching it, I saw who the director was, and it was Gavin O'Connor. And I was like, that name sounds familiar. Why does that name sound familiar? And I looked it up. The movie he had done previous to this, or I think it was only a couple years before this, was Warrior with Tom Hardy and
I did not realize that was the same director.
Yeah. And I loved Warrior. Warrior was a ton of fun. It was Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton. That's who it was.
Yeah.
As MMA fighters. And man, I mean, that was a hell of a movie. Nick Nolte in that as well. So when I saw his name, I'm like, oh, well, it makes sense now why I kind of dug the feel and the tone of this. Because for the most part, I mean, they're not similar movies at all, except for sort of a familial connection that gets explained. But there was just something tonally about it that I kind of I latched onto. So Ben Affleck stars in this, and he plays Christian Wolf, an accountant. And I like the when we meet or when his background is kind of being talked about. It's like like a CPA accountant, uh, which is great. Affleck is great in this. He's really good.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Now, as the movie was starting and I realized, oh, this main character is on the spectrum. I'm like, and my initial thought, because I didn't know that going into it. And what's funny about that is I remember distinctly a couple of months back watching the trailer for Accountant 2 and wondering what's with Affleck's like speech patterns in this trailer? It seems like a really odd choice. Now I get it, and it makes a lot more sense. But when that starts getting revealed in this movie, I kind of did oh boy, okay, let's see how they treat that. I was, as somebody who is not on the spectrum and I don't really deal with that, I'm going to say that I think that they handled it really well.
Okay, that was actually one of the things that I'm in the same sort of boat. Like, I'm by no means an expert or what I would even call knowledgeable on that topic.
Same.
So, like, anything that happens in a movie, I tend to put zero weight in its correct factualness.
Oh, sure.
But I do think that they handled it respectfully.
Yes. That's
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's how I felt about it. Was
right.
It was never played, like it wasn't ever played for laughs or punching down. It felt, the character felt very thoughtfully put together. And I did read in trivia that one of the things they Gavin and Ben Affleck talked about was like, if you're going to do this movie, you can't just do a surface level. You've got to like really think about it and be thoughtful. And I do think that they did that. Is it entirely accurate? I have no idea.
Right. Same boat.
But I never felt like they were taking the piss out of it at all.
Right.
So I did appreciate that. And as far as the characterization goes, I think Christian Wolf is a very interesting character in that respect, because you can see throughout the movie how he is fighting himself a little bit in terms of like his social interactions, where he wants to have a connection with people, but he's not sure how to do it. But again, it's never like made cartoonish either.
Right.
So
there are a couple of, and I know we'll talk about it when we get into the story, but the part where he's doing the taxes for the older couple is another moment where I'm like, I just really like this character a lot, where he's trying to help them along in their process.
Yes, I love. There was that whole first scene in his accounting office, ZZZ Accounting, which is brilliant. That first scene. Here's what I loved about it: is you learn so much about Chris in that scene with very little of him doing dialogue, and there's no like exposition. He's sitting, he's listening to them, but he's also multitasking and watching like his security cameras. I get that. There's your multitask, ADHD, can't quite focus on any one thing, or he's hyper focused on one thing while listening to someone else. So that informed me a lot about him, but also the way he dealt with their problem.
Right.
Because, all right, this guy's got compassion and actually cares to help someone. And so that immediately informs me a lot about him, and has me be like, all right, I don't know what's going to happen throughout the rest of this movie, but I like this guy because he genuinely wants to help these people. And it's absolutely great when he's trying to steer her in the direction of like your home office, and she's doing the thing that makes perfect sense. Like, oh, I just kind of float from here to there. I zip down there. And he's like, zip in the pickup, like the company truck. Like he is it's so good.
When he asked the husband, how big's that room? He's like 200 square feet, and he just kind of looks up like, no, no,
little thumbs up, like, maybe more. That was good.
Yeah, it's great.
I really liked that as an introduction scene, and that is also like that scene plays out. He does all that, and then as he's walking them out to their car, and they're thanking him profusely over and over. And I liked the, oh, you should come out fishing. I don't fish. I shoot. He's like, oh, farm's a great place to go out plinking. And I'm thinking, all right, we're never going to see these people again. So it was nice that he took them up on that and went out there to shoot. I liked that whole idea of it, which also led to a great scene, but we'll get there. So, but I really, really liked Affleck in this because he has got to do a lot of emoting without showing emotion. It's a weird knife's edge he's got to kind of float on, because this character of Chris has a lot of trouble with social interactions and just showing his emotion in what would be considered social norms. So for Affleck to be able to do that while also getting across the fact that like he cares about these people and he cares about to an extent that he's able to. I really, really liked that. So yeah, Affleck is great. Plus he's got the physical chops to pull this role off. And you forget sometimes he's 6'4", like he's a big dude.
Yeah.
I also loved the moment, and I captured it, I'll play later, where after he walks the couple out to their car and he's coming back inside, like it's the perfect social interaction where his secretary is talking to him.
Yeah.
Because like, for a fact he heard words, but none of them registered. And he just gave like, what is the canned response? Yes, it's nice to see you, and walks away. Like, so good. I absolutely love that. Anna Kendrick had no idea she was in this whatsoever. She is super fun, and she gets like the right amount of humor sprinkled in here, while also like she gets a scene to show off that the character is capable. She's not a damsel in distress, really. I mean, she's outmatched. That's not her fault, but she's also resourceful. And I really liked her in this.
On Horse Girls, we do a lot of fan castings for a lot of different things because we stray onto random subjects. But I can tell you that Anna Kendrick gets cast in just about everything we do because she's just fantastic.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah. And she was great in this too. She was wonderful at that person trying to work with Chris and have interactions with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just really well done.
Because she is her character is very outgoing, very personable. So she's trying to be helpful, and Chris has just no idea how to deal with that. And she doesn't know how to react to him. And it gets awkward, but never painfully so. Like it's never, I never had those moments in their interactions where I was like, I just need to skip ahead 30 seconds.
No.
Like it never got to that point. Also, she had a couple of my favorite lines in this. I may have captured those too.
I was so excited to hear the lines you chose from this movie. I can't wait for that either.
It's also hilarious to see her and Affleck in the same scene because he's 6'4" and she's just this tiny little wisp of a thing. So he just dwarfs her. The cold open I really thought was a lot of fun to this. This movie plays with plot twist, but it does so in a way that I feel like is very well executed.
Yes.
Because they play with there's all sorts of different types of plot twists, and one of them is like holding back information on who a character is to then reveal that later. And this cold open, for instance, is really well done because you never see faces. The way they shot everything and like lens flares and sunlight coming in from windows to block out the faces and all that, I thought was really, really cool and really well done. Because when that comes back, we'll talk about it, was a moment I wasn't ready for at all. But we have that cold open. We meet Chris, and then we meet Mary Beth Medina, who is an analyst with the Treasury Department. Yeah.
Yes.
Treasury. And she gets called into the office of her boss, Ray King, played by JK Simmons. JK Simmons, one of my favorites. He is
phenomenal.
I see that name, I'm in. I mean, it helps that he's a Detroit Tigers fan, but I have loved watching him and stuff. The first movie I can consciously remember being like, I recognize that guy is he was in The Jackal back in '98, I
wow.
think, or something like that, playing like an FBI agent.
Bruce Willis? No, it
Yep.
wasn't Bruce Willis,
Yeah,
was
it was
it?
Bruce
Oh, it
Willis.
was. Okay.
Yeah, Bruce Willis and Richard Gere.
Okay.
And I remember seeing him in that, and I loved him in that movie. And after that, it was just one of those, like, seeing him and stuff was great. Of course, J. Jonah Jameson is like the role he was born to play.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He is that guy.
He
And then, like, even
absolutely
the
is.
other thing, when he took over Commissioner Gordon in the DC stuff, I was like, this guy can just do anything. Like, he's just good at everything.
Well, and he can be goofy and fun. He can be jovial. He can be like an uncle, dad, grandpa type. He can also be menacing as hell.
Yeah.
He can be antagonistic in a comedic way, like J. Jonah Jameson in those, especially in the Sam Raimi ones. So funny, but also antagonistic. But then you watch something like Whiplash, and you're genuinely scared of the guy.
Yep.
I loved his turn. The movie is okay. Like, it wasn't bad, but Red One that came out late last year, where he plays Santa Claus.
Oh yeah.
He was fun in that. My problem was he wasn't in the movie long enough. But, he got himself jacked for that, and playing like this jacked up Santa Claus. He's great. And in this, he kind of does a little bit of everything. He has a background we're not sure about for a long time, but there's simultaneously a menace and a warmth to him. And
right from the start.
Yeah. And so, because I love the introduction to his character and then Medina, but by the end of that scene, he's flipped it around, and now you're like, oh, this dude's a little scary. And blackmailing somebody to do work for him at the Treasury Department, like, yikes. So loved all that. That was great. I love some of these flashbacks with Chris, like flashbacks to when he's in prison. And then another actor, Jeffrey Tambor, shows up. Love him. And this was another one of those moments where in the context of the scene, it's just kind of really cool to see, here's this old guy and the young guy, and they're in prison, and he's talking about the accounting. We're getting those breadcrumbs of like, hey, this is how he got into the accounting business and how he got into doing what he's doing with the whole, like, working with all the black market, drug money laundering kind of stuff, uncooking the books, which is a great phrase. But we only got part of that story. And it's sort of like, wait, why is he even in prison? Like, we don't know. He's just there. Jeffrey Tambor is fantastic. He's another one who he definitely leans more comedic, but here he's playing it very, very straight ahead. And I liked him. Because again, he's got that warmth and sort of grandfatherly thing or fatherly thing. And so it was a nice,
he's trying to help Chris get through everything.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the way he was going about it.
Oh, for sure. And then, so Chris gets hired. Oh, he gets his jobs through a phone, like a voice on a phone, right? It's a restricted call. Now, one thing I did clock right away was that it was a computerized voice, like text to voice. And I got that from the first time we got Heavy Sigh.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. It's text to voice. Makes sense, right? Clandestine action going on. You're not going to give away the voice. I'm like, now I'm spending the movie trying to figure out who the voice is on the phone. Like the gears are always turning in my head. Like, who is this voice? But he gets a job to go to a robotics company, right? Like, they do consumer electronics, prosthetics. That is great. And here again, like, more people showing up that I've seen in all sorts of stuff and I love, is Jean Smart. And well, first he meets her and Andy Umberger's Ed. So Rita and Ed. And that was a great interview. Like, I love where what is it he says? I don't want to waste your time. And he's just like, you're not. I'm on the clock.
Yeah. I'm getting paid. Yeah.
He's just, he's so matter of fact. And it's
Yeah.
the lack of social cues for all his interactions are really intriguing to watch, and make him as a character very interesting. But I
And
love
the
we
way
meet
that
them.
the executive got so frustrated by him,
Mm-hmm.
by him talking to him. I was like, oh, this is so like honest. How
It,
someone in that position might act to somebody being that honest back to them.
yeah, especially when you've got somebody who's like Ed thinking, there's nothing wrong with our books. We found one
Right.
discrepancy somewhere, and somebody decided to call in this special accountant. And meanwhile, the special accountant is just like super matter of fact, no nonsense. I really liked that whole scene, and I love Jean Smart. And so I saw her, and then the next scene we meet the owner of the company, Lamar, played by John Lithgow. And I love him. And now I'm like, all right, who the hell is behind any of things that are going on? Because like John Lithgow, another one, he can be super warm and comforting, or he can be, angry at everybody for trying to dance. So, and Gene Smart sort of the same way. This movie is full. JK Simmons, John Lithgow, Gene Smart, they're all able to play either side of that coin. Inspired casting, because you're never quite sure who to trust now. And I loved all of that. So it was just like, it was one after the other of like people that I recognized and love seeing in things. And we're getting all these flashbacks to him as a kid and bouncing back and forth there. And the way the story is unfolding, where we get to learn a little bit more, because we didn't talk about after the cold open meeting them as kids. What did you think of that? Like the whole deal with them
We
as
had a whole
kids.
conversation, me and Jenna both did, about how the father, like, I just recently watched Iron Claw. I don't know if you saw Iron Claw.
I have not seen that yet. No.
Okay. Not a spoiler to say that the father was very aggressive.
Oh yes,
in trying to make
I
them
know
successful,
a little
right?
bit about
Yeah.
the Von Erich family.
Yeah. Well, it was so interesting to me because I didn't get the aggressive vibe from the father. I got the, if he is going to survive in this world, this is what needs to happen. And it was a bunch of stuff that maybe I don't necessarily agree with, and his take on it, but I never disliked the guy. I never thought that he was, like, in the same way that I disliked the father, the Von Erich father, or at least the movie version of the Von Erich father. Like, he was just a guy who saw the world in a certain way and was like, okay, this is how we need to act. And again, like, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't necessarily think your ways are the best ways, but I never hated the guy for it.
It was
And
interesting
I
because
thought that was interesting.
yeah, the way that scene is set up, where we're getting Chris and another kid and a girl in this facility. And I like that, he dumps out the puzzle and he starts putting the puzzle together, and the parents are upstairs talking to the doctor, and the doctor's explaining, like, the autism spectrum, and how, the mom is kind of not quite sure what to make of it, and he's sort of trying to explain it to them as like, there's nothing wrong with your child, he's just different, he processes things differently. They talk about like stimming and stimulating themselves and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the kid's putting the puzzle together, and the other kid, who we learn is his brother, is just kind of staring at him, just watching him, almost protectively, but also like trying to figure him out in a way. And then the girl in the room is much more like not reserved. She's further on one end of the spectrum than either of the two boys, and non-communicative, and like she's very much showing visually the idea of like sensory problems and all the, sensory issues and all that kind of stuff while this conversation is going on. And what I liked about the conversation is the doctor's explaining everything, and I kind of understood and also somewhat disliked both parents, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like the mom has a line I'll play later, that to me felt really rough to hear. It's the whole like when it's someone else's kid, it's this. When it's your kid, it's a problem. I'm like,
Right.
that's a rough way to think about your own child. And then the dad is just very like gruff and stoic.
Yeah.
No, the
Yeah.
world is tough, and he needs to learn how to act in the real world, and he's tough. And that's where that scene ends. The scene ends with young Chris like having a freak out because he can't finish his puzzle. And again,
hmm
here is good character work storytelling to give us this little microcosm of what Chris is like. He needs to finish.
hmm
It is desperately important to him to finish a thing that he starts. And he's missing one piece of that puzzle and he can't finish the puzzle and he's freaking out. Then the girl hands him the last piece because it was like hiding behind the table leg.
hmm
And that reveal at that point was probably my first time where I was like, oh, damn. Because they reveal that he put the whole puzzle together backwards, like upside down.
Uh-huh.
So it was just the back of the puzzle. That I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And again, it's, somebody helping him, but also he had to finish it. So I did like all of that. And it was one of those where I'm like, wow, dad's kind of a dick, and mom it doesn't quite get what's going on.
See, okay, I definitely agree that the mom, I got giant jerk mom vibes there.
Mhm.
But I felt like from the beginning, I got the vibe that the dad was probably a good human who had been put in, we'll say, a unique set of circumstances throughout his life, and it had turned him into sort of seeing the world a certain way. But I felt like underneath there's good person there.
I felt like I can see that because
Yeah.
obviously there's the line of, we keep moving from base to base. And even mom says that like moving from base to base isn't helping him at
Right.
all because he's constantly in new situations. And that's already hard to adjust to, made even more so by him being on the spectrum. And she gave me the feeling of like, she just doesn't know how to handle this and doesn't want to.
Have you been smoking grass?
The thing with him was the military part of it was one thing, but also he just came across as being like kind of stereotypical, not great dad. And so, but that's how it ends here. But what's great about this is because of the way the movie is structured, we get to learn more as we go. And they keep utilizing these flashbacks to young Chris. And I really, really liked that because yes, it starts off, dad's a dick and he's just military dick. And that's it. And they keep that going through some of these first few flashbacks, like when we flash to them training in Jakarta in Indonesia. And I'm like,
Yes.
wow. So he just, oh, well, sorry, that wasn't the first one. The next one was when mom leaves.
Yes.
The next flashback is mom's leaving. And at this point, they had not told us which boy was Chris. Like they never name dropped either of them. And so I was trying to figure out which one of the two was Chris. Because they both sort of like the one brother who we learn is Braxton is the stoic one, and he doesn't talk a whole lot, and he's the one flipping off mom when she leaves, because that second flashback is one brother freaking out, throwing stuff, punching walls, just having a complete meltdown. The other one angry because mom is leaving, and you've got the parents arguing. And again, the way they kind of set it up, you get a little bit of sort of dad is a little too much and he's not handling it well. And mom just is at her wit's end and can't deal with things anymore. But I liked how that scene ended where dad does come back in and try to, comfort the kid in his own way.
I think you sort of scratch on an interesting point about this movie, about how if you were to watch, say, the first 5 scenes, you'd be like, okay, I've got a complete story. And then you tack on that next scene and it's like, well, no, there's a whole section of this that I didn't understand. And that seems to be how the story unfolds almost through the entire movie. There's just something additional that's given to you, and it's a really wonderfully told story because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, because it just keeps peeling back the layer. So like these first flashbacks, I wasn't sure which one was Chris, but by the second, or by the third and fourth, where they're in Jakarta and then they're in whatever, I think it's supposed to be France, in the car. That's when I kind of figured out which one was Chris of the two. And again, you get like, they go to Jakarta and now here's hardcore military dad, like making this guy train them and just beat the brakes off these two boys. And him telling them like, and there again, that's that same mentality of sort of, the world is hard, I'm going to harden you. And it's this trial by fire. And I'm sitting here thinking like, man, you suck. Like, Dad, you're terrible. And the scene in the car with them, I really liked, because that was the first time you got a crack in the stoic facade of the dad, where he's like, look, you have the choice to be a victim or not. These kids are picking on you, not because they don't like you, but because you're different from them, and that scares them. And now you have the choice. What are you going to do? And it's just a really interesting way that like his dad shaped who he became.
Yes.
And how the movie slowly feeds us that information. So we're getting, because this movie is 2 hours and 8 minutes long, I think. And it spends probably the first 45 minutes on building our characters. It's not a slow paced movie, but it takes its time unraveling and unfolding its story. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Pacing is always, for me, one of the most important things in a movie. I don't care if your movie is an hour and a half long or 3.5 hours long. If it's paced well, then I'm going to be engaged the whole time. So I always feel that a movie is as long as it needs to be. I've watched hour and 40-minute movies that felt just like it took days to get.
I'm just going to go find a cash machine.
I've also watched 3-hour movies like The Green Mile, where I felt like it was over with in no time. So this movie paces really well, and I love the slow build of like, we got to learn who Chris is. We got to learn who Dana is. We got to learn a little bit of who Ray is, and even Lamar, and how it all happened. And during all of this is where we meet John Bernthal's character, who I knew was in the sequel, but I didn't. So that was a thing for me that was semi-spoiled, was that I knew it was his brother.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the whole, did not detract whatsoever from my enjoyment of this movie. And part of that is because John Bernthal, always a win. Like, that dude just brings it. He is always so good.
Yeah. If we're going to talk about great casting, and we're going to go through that list that you went through earlier, there's no way we could not include him, because he's fantastic in all things.
He really is. And his introduction in this movie is great. The guy in Zurich coming out and finding his car's like boxed in. So he gets into his car, slides over the seat. I have been in that situation, and it is super frustrating. So he's already frustrated. And then Bernthal just hops into the car with a pistol, and just the way that whole thing unfolded, and he's hitting him and he's hitting him again. And like, at no point in that scene is John Bernthal's character not in complete control.
Yeah.
And it killed me. It was so good. I loved all of it.
His dialogue, and it extends even beyond this movie. His dialogue in those type situations is just always amazing to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And his deliveries, like,
yep.
So I'm going to take a quick aside, because I read part of, I think it was an interview he gave talking about what got him into acting. And I just have to tell this story because this was great. And I'm really, really hoping that this is how it all unfolded. But the story goes that he was going to college. He was on the baseball team, and and there was an intro to theater class that, like, apparently all the athletes took, because it was sort of an easy class. And so he signed up for intro to theater, but he messed up and he accidentally signed up for intro to acting, which was not the simple class that he thought it was. And they had some assignment where you had to bring in an item that was personal to you and tell a story. And he kind of flaked on it, and the last minute grabs his catcher's mitt, brings it in. And according to him, he tells this story, this really just heartfelt story about how he got the mitt from his mom on her deathbed. He's like, I'm telling this story, and the whole class is in tears, and I'm in tears. And then I get to the end of it, and he's like, guys, no, seriously. He's like, my mom is still alive. Okay. And so he tells them that, and then the class ends, and the teacher's like, you stay. And he goes, teacher had me stay after class, chewed me out, ripped me up one side and down the other for doing that, and then said, auditions are tonight for the play, be there. and he said that the reason he did that was because he thought that's what acting was. Yeah. And it's like, man, to have that kind of ability in your acting
right
already is crazy. So just somebody that gets like into the headspace of a character is Jon Bernthal. That's what I love about him in so many things. And it's fun to listen to him talk out of character because he portrays so many like hyper masculine guys, and he's so thoughtful.
Yeah.
So
I've never heard him talk outside of character.
I've seen a couple of interviews with him, and they're great.
We were all introduced to him in Walking Dead, and he just lifted Shane right off the page for me.
Oh yeah.
And then to see him in Punisher, and there was another movie where he played Robert De Niro's son, and I'm like sitting there like honestly debating whether or not he is Robert De Niro's son. Like this guy, I don't know. He just embodies characters like without leaving himself. You know how there's like that Gary Oldman effect where the person disappears. Like you forget that it's even Gary Oldman. I never forget that it's Jon Bernthal there. I just believe Jon Bernthal is the guy he's telling me he is. I was
just talking about that last week while discussing the Grand Budapest Hotel and the actors in that, and sort of the same thing. Like there are actors that are Gary Oldman or Daniel Day-Lewis who are chameleons who just disappear into a role, and you forget that, like you almost don't know what they're like unless you see interviews with them outside of those roles. But and then there are actors that are always themselves. You know, Will Smith in a lot of movies plays a version of Will Smith, or Tom Cruise, or whatnot. Now, that's
John Malkovich is my example. It's always John Malkovich. He always sounds like John Malkovich. I just believe it's a different guy.
It's tough, right? Because like you have to kind of toe that line. Bernthal does a great job of embodying a character while also bringing himself to it. Like I love him in Baby Driver. He's got a great role in that. Fury, he's great in that one. You know, it's just one of those things. Yeah, Sean Connery is an example Faye brings up in the chat of somebody who's always Sean Connery.
Yes, absolutely.
I was watching a thing, somebody was talking about Highlander, and it's always one of my favorite things with Highlander to make the joke of the first Highlander movie stars an American-born Frenchman who plays a Scot with an accent of indeterminable origin, and he's mentored by a Scotsman playing an Egyptian with a Spanish name who's doing a Sean Connery accent. But yeah, I really I love Jon Bernthal, and we get that scene with him in the car, and then he's just not in the movie again until the next scene where he shows up at that dude Ed's house, the executive, after. So Chris comes in and he's supposed to uncook the books for this company, right? They need to find out where this discrepancy came from that this accountant found on their team, Dana. And I love that when he comes in and she's asleep because once again, like he walks in and the door closes and she doesn't move. And so he's like, reopens the door and closes it harder and she doesn't move. And you can see, like, you can hear the gears turning in his head as he's trying to, how do I get her to wake up? What do I do in this situation? And he's like, he walks over and he clears his throat. She doesn't respond. He finally has to like shake the chair to wake her up. And again, tells you so much already. Like she is willing to stay up all night arranging all this stuff to be helpful, to help him out. Cracked me up. And then he, of course, does his thing. They have their moment outside for lunch, which is cute. And she's totally flirting with him the whole time, by the way. Love that. When something he says, no, it's later on when he says something, and Anna Kendrick gives this look of total infatuation, and I loved it. but yeah, when he goes through and he spends all night going over everything and like writing it all out, and I loved him with the markers. And like he's working so hard, he's going through 4, 5, 6 markers. That killed me. But he finds the discrepancy. He went through 15 years of backlogs and finds the discrepancy, and that's when Rita comes back in, Jean Smart. And here's again the movie being really clever, right? Because at this point they plant the seed that she's somehow in on it.
Yes. Which I was 100% convinced of.
Yep. I had it at one point like, okay, all right, Jean Smart. So, well, that's fine. I don't always trust her in everything, and I don't have to trust her in this movie. And, he figured out that it was Ed. It was Ed's accounts or whatever, however that went. And that's when we meet up with John Bernthal again, because he shows up. Now, here's the thing. I have a note on here. Because when Ed's at home, when we go to Ed's house at night and he's walking around, he's in his PJs, right? And he hears something in the kitchen, and he walks into the kitchen and there's just the milk on the counter. That is not something you should be nonchalant about. And like just leaving milk out on the counter, something ain't right. Something's wrong. And he was way too calm while that was going on. Because we had no indication there's anyone else in this house but him. So, and then of course the light flicks on and there's John Bernthal, and I was like, oh boy, this guy's dead. Yep. And that scene again, Bernthal just crushing it.
Yeah,
that whole scene,
literally as intimidating as a person could possibly be.
Absolutely. To the point where like he's even got to walk his own stuff back. Like I don't know how you can say that.
He's like, whoa, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
And then so of course, then the next morning, Ed is gone. Right, self-inflicted overdose of insulin, and they're wiping everything down. So Chris is like, "What's going on?" Because he's not finished. He hasn't finished his work. He's only gone part way with it. And that's when Lithgow comes in and gives him the check for his time. And here again, this is why casting is important, because Lithgow sold this whole scene for me. Absolutely sold it as like just this remorse he felt for his best friend. I brought you in, and now I'm responsible for my best friend offing themselves because of what you found.
Which absolutely further solidifies the fact that Jean Smart did it.
Yes.
In my brain. Like, look at how broke up John Lithgow is. She must have done it.
And so now I'm like, all right, so now he's got to figure this thing out. And that's when we get our first real action sequence, which is he goes and he gets stuff out of his Airstream, and he gets on the phone with his handler and is like, and handler voice is telling him, all right, it's time to leave, it's time to go. And that was something that Jeffrey Tambor, Francis, had told him, is like, don't stay in one place for too long. If you're going to do this, because his assumption is whatever happened is one of his clients.
Yes.
But he's got to go rescue Dana. Like he's got to go help her because something's going to happen to her. And so, right? Because this is, he goes to help her first. And there's a great action sequence. And I love, again, the layers to this and unfolding, right? Because he gets to the building. First of all, we get our second heavy sigh. Always, that one got me every time. But he gets to the building and he sees her walking in, and there's one guy behind her. And it's that classic, like, he's just far enough away that she doesn't notice him, and very obvious that he is there to do her harm. From the second you see him, it's straight out of Central Casting, just henchman. But I loved how it unfolded because he follows her into the elevator, rides it up with her. She gets out. Then he, takes a second, stops the door, gets out. But then you see the delivery guys down the hallway when she walks in. And I'm like, oh, those ain't delivery men. I've seen enough movies to know what's going on here. And then there was a fourth guy in the hallway. I just love that because the trope of it would have been sending one or maybe two people to take her out. And instead you've got four. is great. And also loved her resourcefulness, because as she's getting accosted by one of the delivery guys, she grabs the grates from her gas stove, and I do not ever want to get hit like that. I don't care if it's 97 pounds of Anna Kendrick swinging it at me. That's going to hurt. That thing is heavy. And this whole action sequence, like, there was a touch too much shaky cam in parts, but it was the time. 2016, we were still kind of on the tail end of that. I don't love it, but it wasn't off-putting.
There are few things that I hate more in this world than shaky cam. It is the reason that, well, there are many reasons, but Michael Bay's Transformers, which is literally nothing but, and I cannot watch it. So it is unwatchable for me.
I can appreciate handheld camera work when it's utilized well. I think that, like, Paul Greengrass in his third, or his second, the third Bourne film, I think did a good job with the use of it to give you that very chaotic, frenetic energy. The problem is it gets overused and it gets used too in close.
Yes.
There's
I
a
will
time
do
and
it.
place to do that, but it shouldn't be everything.
I will accept it in your found footage movies. And even then, remember that people are going to have to watch it.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. And when it gets overdone, when it's too shaky or it's too cut up, like a couple of the Taken sequels, right? The Liam Neeson joke of 18 cuts to jump a fence. That kind of thing can be too much. When the shaky cam is used to hide deficiencies in your footage or your choreography, that's one thing I do not like. The way they used it in a couple of the Bourne movies did work because it added to the chaotic nature of the fight, especially in a fight sequence. It can work, but not always. So, it has to be done correctly.
One of the things that is always, like, I hate it so much. When I was younger, I found some videos of the Green Hornet serials they used to run in the 30s before movies.
Oh, yeah.
And just watching those action sequences happen with one camera, one solid shot. And I'm like, how come all these guys are doing it and we can't accomplish it today? Like,
Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves with the John Wick series really brought things back. What happened was the first Bourne movie came along and it was so different. And I'm sure there were a couple of other, there were other movies that probably did this before that. But the first Bourne Identity really changed action movies at its time in terms of mainstream action. And then you got a lot of people following suit in that. But like everything, it either gets refined or it gets overused. Michael Bay is a similar thing to that. He has a very good eye for dynamic visuals, but sometimes he can take that a little bit too far. But I love his visuals in The Rock, in The Island, in Bad Boys. He's so good at that. The
earlier stuff.
Yeah. And even some of his stuff that he did post Transformers can be good. I don't mind the first Transformers. The second one, my issues with it are more story based. But but Michael Bay is kind of a very polarizing director. But like, using those techniques works. It's sort of if you watch like 80s action movies and some of the early action oriented movies from the music video directors. Russell Mulcahy had a very unique style, but by the mid to late 90s, so many people had been utilizing that style, it becomes passé. And same thing with sort of this idea of like James Bond movies, for instance, had a very polished look to them by the early 2000s. And so then Bourne comes along and shows that you can do a spy thriller, but make it real gritty and real like in your face and chaotic. And suddenly all the spy thrillers are doing that. And even Bond, they recycled and used some of those ideas. John Wick comes along and is that kind of palate cleanse to go back in the other direction. You're going to swing the pendulum back and
swing the pendulum back in a direction that is my preference if given the choice between the two.
Yeah. I mean, it's why like I like a Jackie Chan or Hong Kong style
Yes.
kung fu film over a lot of American martial arts movies tends to be because when Jackie Chan or whomever, Stanley Tong, all of them are blocking out and staging these action sequences, they want to make sure you can see things.
Yes.
You know the geography of the area, know where your principal actor is, your antagonist, the threats, where they all are in relation to each other. Let you see those things so that the action can unfold. That first John Wick does such a good job of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this movie, I think, brought in, obviously it's got a little shaky cam to it. There's some handheld stuff, but where they used it honestly worked.
Yes.
And
I mean, I would agree with that. I didn't have any problems with the way any of this movie was shot. I thought it told
really
the
didn't.
story very well. And in fact, you mentioned the shaky cam. Shaky cam didn't even stand out to me as a thing, which makes it feel like it was the right choice even more.
Well, the one time it really stood out to me was only in the scene where so we've had the Bernthal and his thugs show up and take out
Mhm.
Ed. And then we have the action sequence at Dana's apartment where Christian shows up, just mows him down. He's,
Mhm.
by the way, his fighting style is so brutal too.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it's cold, brutal, and efficient, and he does not waste anything. Like,
Yeah.
take somebody down and then he just kills them right there on the spot,
Yeah.
moves on. And it's something that you shouldn't be rooting for, but you do because you actually understand who Christian is as a character by this point.
Right. Right.
And that kind of comes back to my whole thing of like the deliberate pace of the first 45 minutes of this movie to set up our characters is important so that we can root for him throughout the movie when he's doing pretty horrible things. Let's be real.
Yes.
Like, but the second action sequence where he goes out to the farm and the two guys follow him out there was phenomenal because, again, brutal efficiency. And he cares about these two people because they were nice to him. He was kind to them.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to help them out. And like the whole thing where they make what's her name? Dolores. They make Dolores go out and call to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's yelling, and she even says, like, he's too far out. He's not going to hear me, but they're saying it anyway. That was one of those where it's like, I know something's about to happen, but it still caught me off guard because of the framing of it. Like, it's brilliantly shot where it's framed and she's looking toward, past camera, and the guy's off screen on her side, and then he gets shot. I was like, yep, all right. And this is where the shaky cam came in, and it's where Chris is running to the truck as it's driving away.
Right.
But it fits in that part, right?
It does.
It's going to be chaotic, and so that adds to the energy. And I love like the fighting style, again, super just efficient and brutal, especially when he rat tails him with the belt in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a couple things. One, talking about that scene in Dana's apartment. There's something about guys getting put through or smashed with ceramic items that has always been a button for me. And when that guy got put through the sink, I don't know,
it's
that.
Yeah, and I think some of that is it's so visceral because like, we've all been in a bathroom or a kitchen and slipped and like hit a countertop or something like that, and they don't move.
No.
So when a movie takes somebody's head and puts it through a ceramic countertop and breaks that ceramic off, like, yikes, it is something. So yeah, no, I totally get it. That is one that's just so visceral. It's the same thing with her hitting the dude with the grate off her stove or pulling the lid off the toilet and smashing his arm as he's trying to reach in to unlock the door. Like, you can feel that. It's just, it's rough. And like the whole fight, because they're fighting on the back of the pickup later, him and the one guy, he's taking out one dude's done, and he's fighting the other guy in the truck, like breaks through the back window, pulls him into the bed of the truck. They start fighting. I do like the old man hitting the brakes so they fly over the top of it. That
Yeah.
was great.
Yep.
And they get up, and dude grabs a knife, and Chris just undoes his belt
Mm-hmm.
and slaps him in the face with it, which is great. And I love the reaction to that. What the heck? And he just grabs the belt, and it was not a long fight at all.
No. No.
It's over with so quick, and the way he then wraps the belt around the guy's neck, steps over it to get the leverage. Oh man, it's just, again, it's so much of, and I talk about this quite a bit with fight choreography, especially telling stories, right? It comes back to like pro wrestling. That's one of the things with pro wrestlers is, yes, it is predetermined what's going to happen, but there's storytelling going on in a good match. Through the physicality of it. And it's the same in the choreography of a fight in a film. You should be telling a story with that. This fight is very short, but it tells a very quick story, which is the guys coming after him are not trained very well. Certainly not to the level that he is.
Right.
And he is going to dispatch them quickly, brutally, and efficiently while getting the information out of them.
Yeah. When he looks at him and he says, "When I say the name, you say yes." And then he just says practice.
Yes. Oh.
And I'm like, oh,
it's so good. So
Oh,
he
but,
takes him out and figures out, he still thinks at this point it's one of his clients, one of the
Right,
hotels or something
right.
coming after him. So you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the things that stood out to me that I had managed to miss every other time that I'd watched this movie was when she goes out and she calls to Chris when she goes out of the farmhouse, and she's like, he's too far away. He won't hear it.
Mhm.
And another little thing that they added to it was the next thing you hear is the bullets hitting, followed by the gunshot, which had just now caught up to it because he was that far away.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a neat little feature that had just blown past me as I hadn't even thought about it until this watch through.
There's all those little details in there that I think are really, really good. And we haven't really talked about Medina and King, which is sort of the B plot of this, because Mary Beth Medina, Cynthia Addai-Robinson, there's her reveal, like she's an analyst and she's a good analyst, and director King is like, well, why haven't you put in to be an agent yet? And the whole reveal, like she lied on her application, didn't mention her juvenile record. And I loved where she's like, those records were sealed. And I'm just thinking, he's a director of a government agency. He can just like that's trivial for him. Come on now. You've seen enough movies. But yeah, like King basically blackmailing her into doing, being on this case to figure out who this accountant is. And this movie does the thing I love, which is show people doing real investigative work.
Yeah.
Actually doing things to investigate, not like one or two and then, oh, I figured it out. It takes time. It's that whole first half of the movie where she is, she's finding pictures and sending them off to other departments and other bureaus to get information. And they're calling her back with like parts of it. And then she's got to find other pieces that then go somewhere else. It's the thing that Zodiac did really well as a movie, which is detectives doing detective work. Seven, I think, did a good job of that too.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think that this does, especially as like the secondary plot.
Yes.
And it gives her a thing to do, but it also makes sense that it would take some time for her to gather this information. So I really, really like that. And we're still like, I'm still at this point trying to figure out the director too, King, JK Simmons' character. Like, what has he done? Because there's always these moments after something where he's like, they linger on him for a second. I'm like, oh, what are you into, dude? Like, what is going on here? He's got a hidden agenda. And it's everything kind of coalescing, bringing the different threads together that just worked really, really, really well. And I did get some clips. I got to play some of these because some of these are too good not to. So here's one. And I just like this line, especially, again, when we're dealing with a main character that is portrayed as being on the spectrum. And this is from the doctor in the beginning of the movie with talking to the parents.
Doctor, in your opinion, can our son lead a normal life?
Define normal.
Yep.
That is the correct answer. Define normal. Because the dad at this point, all we know about him is he's in the military. So it makes sense that would be his question, right? This is a man whose whole life is built on regiments and schedules and, normalcy. And the doctor being like, well, define normal.
That's
really
definitely not the answer that the dad wanted to hear in that moment, though.
Nope. Not
Yeah.
at all. So that was great. All right, let's see. Let's get some Chris action here. Here's some Ben Affleck lines. This one I mentioned, just too good not to get.
My daughter's meeting me for lunch. I think you two just might hit it off.
Nice to see you.
He heard words. He didn't listen to any of them. In one ear, out the other. Yep, nice to see you. Social platitude, moving on. When he and Dana are sitting outside having lunch, it is funny that he comes into the work that morning and then we cut to him having lunch and then he goes back to start working. It's like, do you take a super early lunch or just not do anything for the morning? Not sure. Doesn't matter. It's a movie. But I liked the moment because she just won't stop talking to him. And you can see him just being like, anywhere but here. I need to be anywhere but here. I do not want to be a part of this conversation at all. She is not stopping. All right, I guess I have to do something. But there's a little break in there when he says,
Because dogs would never bet on things, and so it's incongruous. I like incongruity.
and he gets that little smirk, and it's great because it's a very human moment from him.
Yeah.
And it is why I really like this performance by Affleck, because he's able to balance without it feeling out of character for Chris either.
Right. And it doesn't feel like overplayed or anything.
No, not at all.
I love
that.
It's just a guy, and I just really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
She also mentions the thermos in that scene.
Oh, yes.
And I do love how the thermos keeps coming up.
Yeah, he pulls the thermos out and she's like, how do you dent a steel thermos? It's just really old.
It's just really old.
And that, honestly, that could have left right there and never been another thing. But the way they bring that back is so good. And we're going to get there.
Yep.
This one, I'm just going to play it.
Heavy sigh. What's the plan?
Find the person who wants to kill her.
And?
Shoot them in the head.
It's a solid plan. I mean, again, Chris is very matter of fact. And when you know who his dad is, it even makes more sense why that would be his plan. That's how his dad would have taught him. And just, again.
Heavy sigh.
Yeah.
I love that. I just love that so much.
This is how Travis is going to text everybody now.
It is.
This is going to start with heavy sigh.
Heavy sigh. I love when he goes to his Airstream because we see that a couple of times, and he's he opens up the drawer and he's got all the cash. But when he gets there with her, so he's gone to Dana's place, he's taken out all the hitmen. He takes her and they go straight to his storage unit. He walks inside, and I like this. Now, I like to read IMDb trivia and IMDb goofs, although goofs tend to annoy me because they get a little too nitpicky. But one of the goofs in the movie was they get to the Airstream and he tells her, stay here. And then he goes inside it. And somebody wrote in there, he goes inside and then doesn't lock the door, which nobody would ever do, and all this. And I'm just thinking, why would he lock the door? In his mind, if he tells her to stay put, if it was him, he would stay put.
He's already locked the shed.
Yeah.
The storage unit that they are in. Nobody would lock the door.
No. But I love, she gets in there and she sees the paintings and opening the drawers, and the one drawer's got a bunch of cash in it, and then different denominations of U.S. cash, but also different world currencies. He opens up the other drawer and it's all the gold. I was like, ooh, that's damn. And then the third drawer opened up and it's comics and baseball cards.
It's the first appearance of Green Lantern and it's the first appearance of Superman.
Yep.
Those both stood out to me.
Those, and then he also had the Honus Wagner 1901 card, the rarest baseball card that it's like 1901 tobacco card or whatever. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is how he's able to finance everything. Is he's got this kind of stash hanging around. And there was the thing earlier when he's on the phone with the voice where they're talking about selling the paintings. And again, something that tells you a lot about him. He doesn't want to get rid of the Jackson Pollock painting he's got hanging over his bed, but he'll sell the Renoir. And she sees those. Like, I just loved all of that. And then this is such a perfect line for the character of Christian Wolf.
Everything in the world that is important to me is in this trailer. And right now, changing my routine for you is jeopardizing that.
Changing his routine is the worst possible thing you could do to him in this moment. But he will do it because it has to be done. I love that. Absolutely love that. And then when they get to the hotel, right, he takes her to like a really nice hotel to hole up. And when they're talking, she has him sit on the couch with her, right? They sit on the sofa. And he looks so uncomfortable sitting down. So uncomfortable. Like moving the pillows and resting back and all of that was great. But then there's this line.
My father was an officer in the Army, psychological operations.
Right there. We're halfway through the movie. I think we're about an hour in at this point, right? Somewhere around that. And when he says, my father was in the military, psychological operations, I was like, oh, well, now it makes sense why his dad's such a dick, right?
Yeah.
Psyops. Totally flipped everything I thought about with the dad at that point. Because now I get why he is the way he is. It's not just the military. It's also psyops in the military.
Right.
And he's dealing with a child in general is already going to be tough. A child on the spectrum, even tougher. He's got the two boys. The mom is gone. Like, all of these things are falling into place now. All these puzzle pieces. Again, the puzzle metaphor. But like, these pieces are falling into place. So I really liked that. And that is, again, a great way to reveal more information.
Right.
So we haven't had the reveal of who Brax is yet in the movie. But we know now that Chris has figured it out, right? Or something. No, he's going after Rita. That's right. He has figured out that Rita set him up.
Right.
Because Dana has the line. Well, first of all, I love this from her.
I went through these ledgers for months and I got through one fiscal year. You went through 15 overnight?
It's not even the best part.
You went through 15 overnight, and I just love that's not even the best part. He's excited. It was so great. When they get to the storage unit, I forgot about this, but this was great.
Running isn't an option for me. I can't just walk out on my life. We have to go to the police. That's what normal tax-paying people do.
I wonder if the tax paying was an ad lib or if that was written into the script.
I don't know.
Kind of 50-50 on that. Like,
yeah,
it feels like it could have been written in the script, but it also very much feels like an ad libbed moment. And they're just like, that's perfect. Go with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, then we get.
But why would she hire you in the first place if she thought you would figure it out?
Why would Rita hire you? Because Rita is the one that hired him, right? And so now he's like, I got to go find out. And so that puts him on the case to go after her. And that's when he sees the mystery man, the hitman that we don't know. We've seen him. We as an audience know who he is and what he's capable of. And I loved that scene where they're walking down the street because they both know the other one knows, but they're not sure how much they know that they know. And it get very like, and then he's slowly, taking the suppressor out, putting it on his pistol. I'm like, oh boy. All right, here it comes.
Yeah. And you see that Braxton, it has that same like eliminate the threat immediately mindset that Chris does, because he just turns around and just right at him.
Yep. Shoots at him and then disappears. And Chris goes in, and this was the next big twist that I did not see coming. Maybe I should have, but I did not, because again, the movie set us up really well for Rita to be the one kind of behind things. And then he goes in and he finds Rita dead. And I was like, whoa, hold on. Gene Smart isn't the villain? Wait a minute.
Right.
Hold the phone. John Bernthal's character went after her and killed her. She was the one that hired him. Is my whole mentality throughout all of this. So it's like, oh boy. So that happens, and oh man, there's a lot going on here, and I loved all of it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mentioned when they're sitting on the couch, there's a little bit of flirting between the two of them, more so from Dana, with Chris kind of not really sure how it goes.
How did you get into financial consulting?
Oh, this is
Department of Labor statistics indicate it's one of the fastest growing professions. Actuarial sciences are experiencing tremendous growth as well.
That works for her for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it does. And he is completely aloof to that point. But I like how it comes back around when they do sit on the couch later and they're talking. And again, she's telling the story of the prom dress, which for me was an interesting story because she taught herself to play blackjack to go make the money at the casino, then lost almost all of her money playing blackjack, but won all of it back plus what she needed to buy her dress on a slot machine. That doesn't make any sense, but sure. But I love, like, she's telling this story and he's catching on to, like, oh yeah, no, the more expensive dress was the right mode to go in because it was like an investment. You could use that later. Like, it's something that makes sense to him. And I just loved.
Where were you when I was in high school?
Oh, North Carolina, Israel.
Right.
She's again trying to relate to him, and he's just completely missing it. It was so good. I just absolutely adored all of that. Let's see. Oh, okay. JK Simmons. Man. Ray King. Our intro to him. Medina walks into his office, and we get...
Stop talking. You have a very cavalier attitude for the president of a bank with such a piss-poor capital cushion.
I don't want him angry with me, ever. No. Because I would immediately feel like I'm about 2 feet tall. Like he just barking at you. It's perfect. It's so good.
Just somebody telling you to stop talking has to be like the harshest thing that anybody could say.
Oh yeah.
You're saying whatever you're saying, and however you mean it, somebody just looks at you and says, stop talking.
Yeah. I mean, if you are trying to get a point across, you're trying to quote unquote win the conversation, and you just get
stop talking.
Oh, all right, I'm done. And then we go through this whole thing where, he's talking to Medina and he's being, he's like, look, you're good. You did all this great work. Why haven't you tried to be an agent yet? And she's sort of trying to play it off. And then again, this is the brilliance of JK Simmons because he flips.
Well, you're a liar, Medina.
Like, ooh, all right.
Yeah.
And then when he brings up her juvenile record and he shows the picture of her tattoo and she just gets up to leave and it's...
You better sit your ass back down in that chair, young lady.
Yeesh. All right.
Yeah.
Yikes. And that's when he starts telling the whole kind of background of the accountant and what he knows. And I had to get this because this was too funny.
Deloitte & Touche, H&R Block.
It's Deloitte & Touche. It's just a funny name. It's a funny name. I can't help it. It's too funny. And, that's what it is. Then he ends things with her in that scene.
At the end of the month, one of two things will have occurred. Resolution of this case, or we update your photo.
Boy, just putting her right in a rough situation already. It was really, really good. Now, we get the reveal that, it's not Gene Smart that is behind everything. Then we get another great reveal, another twist added to this, which is Medina has figured out and found the accountant. She's found his business through, putting together like the whole mathematician names and Lewis Carroll and all of those things. And like she's done all her investigative work and she's tracked him to, what is it, Plainview, Illinois, I think is what it was. And so they go to his house. And I love it because his house, I'm watching the scene unfold thinking these FBI agents have to think they're in the house of a serial killer because they're opening a drawer and there's one spoon, one fork, one knife. They're opening, there's nothing in any of the cabinets except a dented thermos.
Mm-hmm.
And like just everything is so sanitized and there's nothing in this house whatsoever. But we get our second big reveal, which is we get to learn about Ray King. And this, I also, again, didn't really see coming. Probably should have. But man, I love this because this is, again, how you reveal stuff. Call back to that cold open of that whole sequence. And we've seen this cold open of like a shootout and this brutal killing and all, an agent coming in or somebody coming into this. And we've seen surveillance footage from as Medina has been doing her investigation and heard the audio and all that. Now we get yet another kind of peel back of that sequence, and we get to see it again. But it was Ray. It was Ray King was the guy that we were following in that opening sequence the whole time. I loved that. What did you think of that?
Fantastic. And also the way the stories crossed with Ray King being there, but also why Chris is there. And it's because he's paying back for the Jeffrey Tambor story.
Yeah.
And I love how the different elements of the story are now coming together. And then the interaction that Chris had with Ray King, which is just another level of showing that this guy, like, yes, he's doing awful things, but he's not doing them for awful reasons.
Yeah.
Which is another reason to root for him while he's doing the awful things.
And it's fantastic because we get a little bit more of how he ended up in prison. Right. And he ended up in prison because him and his dad went to the wake for his mother and were asked to leave by her new family, which Chris overreacts, starts a fight. Local cops go to shoot at him and hit his dad because his dad jumps in front of it. So he loses his dad there, ends up in Leavenworth. But somehow, like, the Treasury Department gets him transferred out of Leavenworth into a different prison. He's going to do work for them. And that's where he meets Francis, and he gets all this information from Francis. Well, Francis was like an informant at that point, but then gets let go. So the mob picks him up. And, so when Chris learns about that, that's what led to the whole thing at the start of the movie. I loved all of that coalescing and coming together there. Was great. And then, the interaction with Chris and Ray in that hallway, because we saw everything leading up to that in the cold open, right up to the gun to the back of the head. And now we get the play out of that. And I loved this.
Who employs you, Raymond King?
I'm a Treasury agent.
Are you a good one?
No, not particularly.
I loved that because that is that feels very real to me.
Yes.
The honesty in that moment of saying, like, I'm not really that good of an agent. Absolutely loved it. But then to ask him if he's a good father, because he's obviously Ray in that situation is going to say whatever he can to try and get out of it. So he's like, I'm a dad. I'm a dad. And he's like, are your kids grown? Yes. Are you a good father?
I'm a lousy agent, and I've been a weak man. But that I didn't screw up.
That's also a great way to word that, right? Because he could have said, like, but I'm a great father. I'm a good father. No, it's that I didn't screw up. Like, good writing.
Yeah,
really is. And that was enough to basically save his life from Chris because of Chris's moral code. And I really, really, really liked that. That was a great scene. This was from earlier, but I captured both of these because they were great bookends. Because the beginning of the movie, Ray King, during a press conference, does the most canned response of any federal agent ever.
Nothing fancy, just a team effort comprised of long hours of good old-fashioned investigative work. Questions?
Like, that's just every red flag going up for a journalist. Every single one. So I loved that at the end of the movie, we get Medina.
Because this was a team effort comprised of long hours of good old-fashioned investigative work.
Love that. That was a great... Because when she learns everything from Ray and gets that whole reveal, and because after that moment at the social club where, you know, they have their interaction, Ray's like, "That's it, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm done being a treasury agent. I'm terrible at it. I almost died out there." And then he gets the call from the voice with the information, and he sticks around and ends up becoming director because of it, right? And he basically wants to pass that torch on to Medina. That's why he was blackmailing her. That's why he picked her, which is also amazing. I love that. And for her to be like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Very real human response.
I love the way that everyone gets approached from the, here's what they're doing, here's why they're doing it. Okay, now you can go and contemplate on whether or not it's the right or wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Like JK Simmons, Ray King is getting the results that he wants, but he's having to work with this known criminal to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, you know, she doesn't want to be a part of it. But also, she did lock a guy in a trunk for 3 days.
Right.
But it was because he was poisoning her sister through the drugs he was selling. So, like, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different context. And there's no, like, pure right answer. Okay, these are the right right things that are happening.
Yeah, it's not a classic Hollywood black hats, white hats.
No.
You know, it's not that at all. It's there's a lot of ambiguity and gray area in there. And it's a lot of like, you know, making the compromises to get where they think they need to be. And you've also, the same thing with Lamar running his company, John Lithgow.
Here's a guy who's helping, you know, thousands of people throughout the world, but he's also doing this one wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or probably more than one, but like we're going to focus in on this one wrong thing, and it's the one thing that Chris can't abide. You know what I'm saying? Like the way that he's killed off these people and done all these unethical things, but he is, you know, helping people. So like, it's an interesting question there too.
And I think it's because of this, like, it is an interesting gray area because Chris is doing a lot of similar stuff, right? Where he's you know, moral high ground and doing terrible things to 2 or 4 people in order, but also trying to help.
Or, with Ray King and Medina being the sort of like most obvious example.
Yeah.
Ray King, I do this job. Medina is the only person that I believe can do this job after me. So I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make her do it.
Yep.
Even if it involves blackmailing her into taking this case. You're like, well, that's not... Does your result justify what you're doing? Probably not. But who am I to say, you know?
Yeah, and even, you know, Bernthal's character of Braxton, same thing. Like, he does a lot of this stuff, but like the whole sequence with Ed where he, you know, he gets real demonstrative and he tells him he's going to do things, you know, burn his house down, do things to his wife. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, no.
Yeah.
But it's the way he gets the results, and it's the way that Chris gets his results. And so it's all of this kind of stuff. And I really, really, really liked all of it. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, but like the scene where Chris comes back the next morning after Ed and they're wiping down the windows. And of course he's freaking out because all of his work is, he's like, he can't finish his thing. And Lamar comes in, pays him, and he says this to him.
You're very good, Mr. Wolf, but I hope our paths never cross again.
In that moment, like, I genuinely believed that this guy was just taken aback by the loss of his best friend.
Yes.
Like, all of that. They played it so perfectly. So then later on, when we find out, oh no, he was behind the whole thing. He's the one that hired Brax. He's got like basically private security now at his house, knowing full well that this accountant that he dismissed as just being a weirdo because of his one interaction with him, is now coming after him because everybody that they send after, he's killed. And so they've got the perimeter set up, all of that, and we get the first action sequence, and Braxton sends all his men out. And we're getting like bits and pieces of it from the action sequence as well as like the cameras and all that. And then Lamar just says,
Are they dead?
"What do you think?" Yes, of course they are. Come on, man. But then we have, I loved this exchange. And now I knew already who Braxton was. And I knew that Bernthal's character was Christian's brother. That hadn't been revealed in the movie yet, but because of seeing the trailer for the sequel, I knew that. Even so, this exchange between Lamar and Braxton was perfect because Lamar now, he's freaking out. He doesn't know what's going on. And he says,
I could see it in his eyes. The freak wasn't going to let it go.
And right after that line is said, there's just a shot of Braxton and the look on his face.
Yeah, yep.
Says so much. And it was perfect. I loved every second of that.
I loved there was 3 or 4 shots, I'd say, where you can see him sort of figuring it out. Where you can see Braxton start to piece it together who this person is. But that was the moment when he said that, when he's the freak, he just looked up.
Yep. Oh, and that's when he knew. And we were just a few minutes away from them revealing that in the movie. And what a reveal. Like, what a great sequence too. Oh,
Yeah.
Loved all of it. Speaking of Braxton, a couple clips of him because John Bernthal.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the car with that dude in Zurich. He's already hit him once. The guy says something else snarky and he just smacks him again.
It's the same spot, Simon. Why are you gonna let me hit you in the same exact spot?
That's probably my favorite line in the whole movie.
It's so good.
It's so Bernthal and it's so good.
Oh, but then to end it, where he basically tells the guy, because I like how he's like, you're shorting us. You can't be doing that. And again, a little bit of the moral part of it where the way he brings it up is like, these are, they had to lay off workers. These are people with families and their pensions are worthless now and all that because you shorted the stock. And the guy's like, we short so many companies. He's like, well, I guess you got to do all of them then. But when he gets out of the car,
Boy, Simon, I'm proud of you.
It's just so, again, that's such a great line. I'm proud of you. Like, because he's not at all. He's so perfect.
He is. He's so phenomenal in everything.
He's
John
just
Bernthal's
great.
Punisher. Like, I just can't say enough about it.
Oh,
like, he's
man,
just so good.
His Frank Castle is
it's
phenomenal.
So good. Yeah. And it plays so well against Charlie Cox's Daredevil.
I've got to finish Born Again.
Yeah.
I got to get that done. Again, the scene with Ed is so sitting across the table, eating some lemon meringue pie, drinking milk, and Ed's kind of not doing what he wants, and he just tells him,
She wakes up, my hands are tied. 1 accidental death, it's just that. But 2, I'll have no choice. I'll have to rock and roll a home invasion. Violates your wife, does it in different ways, kill you both, burn the place to the ground.
Like, he says all that and then immediately backs it up because the horrified look on Ed's face as his 2 mooks sitting behind him are chuckling about it. Hate those 2. But he says all that and then he comes right back with,
sometimes I think I just say shit. Sample what comes out of my mouth.
Like, oh, it's great. And I did like where he's like, I'm not gonna violate your wife. Come on, I wouldn't do that. Like,
but as soon as he said that, you're like, oh God. And he's trying to convince this guy that he's got to take insulin. He's like, or else this will happen. And I'm like, like overdose on insulin. I mean, and I'm like, geez, this guy's rough.
Yep. The 2 of them have their knockdown fight, Chris and Brax. And we get the reveal that they're brothers. And I love where he's just upset because he went to the funeral with his dad instead of his brother. And it's the whole thing where like he was angry with the mom for leaving. And that was the whole, and so he's blaming Christian for their dad dying because
Yeah.
Christian, the assumption is he is assuming Christian had to go to the wedding or had to go to the funeral and took dad with him, when it was really kind of the other way around.
Yeah.
It was really the dad wanted to go. And we got this wonderful little exchange between the two of them.
Some of my clients are quite dangerous.
Kind of considered fairly dangerous myself.
Like, yeah, maybe a little bit. And I did like right after that, Christian says like, yeah, you've made some improvements. Which I am one to always capture laughs, and this isn't much of a laugh, but still, it's a pretty good one from Bernthal when he tells him you've made the improvements. the hand is perfect. It's so good.
I do also, one of the great moments in the movie for me is when Bernthal has his one goon remaining and he's walking around the corner.
Oh yeah.
To take out Chris, and Bernthal says, no, stand down. And the guy's like, whatever, I'm not doing that. And so Bernthal just drops him right then and there before he can. And I was like, oh, it's so good. Mm-hmm. It's such a good movie.
Yep. And then we get a second version of that, which is when Lamar comes out as they're sitting. The two of he's watching the monitor and he's seeing them fight and then stop and just talking to each other. And he comes out and he's basically like, what the hell is going on here? And he starts going into his monologuing and diatribe.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that ends.
Do you even know what that's like?
Yes, I do.
And just takes him out. Yep, that's it. We're done. There we go.
No fanfare, no nothing. Just straight into the point.
Is exactly how that should go with this character.
Right.
In this movie. Absolutely where that should have been. I got a couple more here. These are from the end of the movie because I like then one last little twisty reveal thing, which is we go back to the facility with the doctor. He's got a new couple and they're talking to another. He's talking to another couple about a child. And I loved.
Your son's not less than. He's different.
Again, exactly. He's just different. That's fine. There's nothing. Be different.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Embrace being different and being weird. That's my whole thing. And the kid wanders into that room, and we see the girl from the beginning of the movie, because you can tell because she's doing the same stimming that she was doing in the beginning of the movie. I was like, oh, that's like what a cool reveal of she's still there all these years later, and then you learn, oh, she's the doctor's daughter. Okay. And I love she's non-communicative. She stopped talking, whatever it was, however many years ago. She only talks through her computer now, is basically what he says. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. And as they're walking out, the one guy, the dad in this situation.
Why, is that a good computer? Good. Doc, she could backdoor the Pentagon with that rig.
And the reveal that she's his handler, because there was the bit earlier where Medina mentions that most of the money that Christian makes he donates to the thing, and I found Medina mentions that to Agent King that Christian Wolf gave $1,100,000 to the Harbor Neuroscience Institute. 1,000,100 is binary. In binary is the equivalent of 68. Later in the movie, in this end scene, is where the doctor says that 1 in 68 children are diagnosed with some form of autism. The
Interesting.
All working together, like that kind of stuff. That's great.
They gave you everything you needed to know at the beginning of the movie that she was the handler, though, because she was the one that helped him finish the job, finish the puzzle piece.
Yep.
And so it was all laid out for us, and it did. It made it come around great at the end when you got there.
And that is how you do twists and reveals in a movie. That's one of the things I love. That's what makes a good twist in a movie work versus a movie that just does a twist to have one, is that you have all the information already. It's already
Yes.
there for you. But now when you see it revealed retroactively, you're like, it was right there in front of me the whole time.
Yes.
Right? How did I
Yeah.
not know who Kaiser Soze was? How did I not
Yeah,
know that he was dead the whole time? Like all of that kind of stuff is it's all signposted for you. And you're right. They tell you that right at the beginning of the movie, but they don't reveal it till later. And I do remember thinking, how's the girl going to factor into the movie when she hands him the puzzle piece? And then by the end of the movie, like it just was out of my head. I didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought it back around. I just loved all of the structure and the pace of this movie. This was a great choice. We also had a wonderful exclamation when they're at his house. This made me laugh out loud because they found all his cameras outside, all his hidden cameras in his backyard, and the serial killer house. But then they go into the garage and she pulls the sheet and there's just a Gatling gun behind that on like an arm. And just the FBI agent looks at it and just
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
it was so it made me laugh out loud. I absolutely adored that. No, look, this is I slept on this movie mostly because it kind of just came and went. Like I heard about it.
Yeah.
Didn't go to see it. Forgot about it. Just completely forgot about it. See the sequel trailer, and now I want to watch that. I want to see the sequel to this movie because I'm really curious how they continue the story. And I do know from I can't say I do know, but I don't believe Anna Kendrick comes back. But I feel like everyone else does. And if she doesn't, it makes sense. There's no more story for her, but I don't know until I see the movie.
Yeah.
But I know
I have already seen the movie, so I'm not going to give you any spoilers.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate
it. But I'm very excited that you like this movie because I really like this movie a lot, and I was worried we were going to sit here and pick it apart.
No, I mean, look, are there things I could probably nitpick? Sure, but I had a great time with the movie because it's
right.
And the reason I had a great time with the movie is that it set and established its world, and it stayed consistent to its own rules throughout.
Yeah.
And I like that. I also like taking the idea of somebody who you don't think of as being badass as a character, being badass in some way, but spinning that a little differently. It's why I liked, like I love the John Wick films, but then there were a lot of John Wick clones. Thankfully, we've seen some of those, the better ones, take that idea and learn a better lesson from it. So like Nobody, for instance, is a John Wick but it's not John Wick. It's different. It's a different spin on that. This has some of that same kind of DNA, that same sort of an idea, but take it and spin it and do something new with it, and adding in the family aspect of it.
Right.
Who Christian is as a character to make him an interesting character that you care about and follow. And you want to see what happens with him, and you want to see what happens with Braxton and how he interacts with Dana. Like him and Dana in the hotel room, at one point, she's telling him the story. She's flirting with him. She goes to lean in for the kiss, and that's when he doesn't even register that that's about to happen because his brain is still working on the problem at hand.
Right.
And he has the epiphany, and she's very confused by it at first, but then kind of gets swept up and runs with it. And I loved that. Like so much of this was just so well crafted and put together, and it showed care on the part of everybody making it. I also really liked, this was one other thing, because Ben Affleck is a director. He's directed, some movies that have actually been of note, and he gets cast in this. And I liked this quote from Gavin O'Connor, where he's like, the last question I had for Ben was, he's like, look, I'm a big fan of your work, but I just have to ask the question so I don't run into problems later. We're not going to have two directors on this movie, right? And Affleck told him it's never going to be a problem. And
that's awesome.
Understood that. And I think that is so great to hear, because it's hard to not want to be that when you have done it.
Exactly.
But for him to be able to just kind of step back and be like, no, I'm just going to act this time around. Like I can just focus on being the character. And if, I don't have to keep all the plates spinning, I can just go to my trailer while the director figures that stuff out. And I think it takes somebody who has been a director to understand that.
and have faith in somebody to put out the proper product, and that you don't have to meddle to get the right result.
Yep. So I absolutely loved all that. This is a great choice. I'm going to be watching the sequel.
Oh, awesome.
I can't wait to watch the sequel, honestly, because just seeing Affleck and Bernthal again is going to be great. I love those two. So yeah, this was a real good choice. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for getting me to finally watch this one.
I can't wait to hear what you think about the second one now.
So now you have a podcast. I've talked to you and Jenna and Alex a couple times now, but remind people of the Horse Girls podcast and what you guys do.
We do a podcast called Horse Girls, where Jenna and Alex, who know what they're talking about horses and horse culture, we'll call it, and I know nothing about it, and they're trying to teach me what did the Borg do? I don't know. Absorb me into the culture, and it's not going well. I'm not good at learning it, but it's a lot of fun, and we have a lot of fun, and you should come listen to the podcast and listen to us talk about it. And also, I do a couple other podcasts, one called Animorphs Anonymous, which is great. We are talking about the other Apple Grant properties right now, and then Late Starters, which is a Pokemon TTRPG.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah.
I'll have links for all of that stuff in the show notes as well. Check those out. Horse Girls, I love the idea of it, and I've had all of you on the show, and at some point I know I'm getting roped into watching something to come talk about. So that's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely check all that out. I'll have stuff in the show notes. If you like this conversation and this show, do it every week, every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here, twitch.tv/TVstravis. Comes out on your podcatchers and YouTube every Wednesday. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you can, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/WYHS. You can find links to that on my website, tvstravis.com. But the Patreon helps me to do things like go back to DragonCon, which I'm doing this year. And I'll be doing the show live at DragonCon again, amongst other things I'll be doing there, which we'll be talking about in the coming weeks as we get closer and closer to DragonCon. I'm excited. I'm excited for what's going on. But if you can, the Patreon is there. If not, I totally understand. Just listening to the show, I appreciate that more than I can put to words. Now, next week, I have Nicole Spagnolo coming onto the show. Finally connected with her, and we are going to watch a movie that I have never seen before. Again, I'm going to watch Gattaca from 1997. I have seen like the first couple of minutes of this movie, maybe. And I know Jude Law is in it. And I think that's about all I know. Is it Ethan Hawke.
Was it Ethan Hawke?
Ethan Hawke, not Jude Law. I don't know why I would get those two confused. That doesn't even make sense. No, it's Ethan Hawke. And the thing is, I love Ethan Hawke. So why I haven't seen this movie, I cannot say right now.
Yeah.
But that's what's coming up next week. And I've got some more fun stuff down the pipeline as we get closer and closer to August and Cage-a-Palooza 2025, which my favorite month of the year, every year. Just nothing but Nick Cage, wall to wall. I cannot wait. So, yeah, come on back next week for Gattaca. And Tim, thank you so much for being here. As always, it's a pleasure. We'll do it again.
Yeah, man.
So until next time, in Gattaca, just remember to enjoy your movies and let's be excellent to each other. It's been Wait You Haven't Seen.
Where you live?
No, I don't live here. This is a storage unit. It would be weird.
That's what would be weird.
Absolutely love that.
I'm so glad that you like that movie. That makes me so happy.